Do you crave sizzling carne asada but heartburn is holding you back? Not today, because this recipe delivers restaurant-worthy flavor minus the fire. This recipe is all about maximum flavor and zero heartburn so everyone can enjoy it. But you can easily add more spice if you like to turn up the heat. Hello, my name is Nicole Bonilla, and if you love healthier recipes made with all natural ingredients, then you are in the right place. To make this delicious carne asada, we're going to start by making a very simple marinade. So in a bowl or shallow dish, we're going to start by adding 1/4 cup of orange juice, 1/4 cup of avocado oil. You could also use light olive oil. And for a bright citrusy flavor, we're going to cut 2 limes, and then we'll juice those right in. Now you're welcome to jot down the ingredients as we go along, but to make it even easier, you can click on the link in the video description below to the full recipe and notes that's on my website, gentletummy.com. And for a little deeper and smoky flavor, I'm going to add a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, and you can make sure that it's gluten-free if you're needing a gluten-free option. Then I'll add about 1/4 cup of chopped fresh cilantro, and I have 3 cloves of garlic that I minced using my garlic press. And then for our seasonings, we're going to add a teaspoon of some dried oregano, a teaspoon of some cumin, and a teaspoon of salt, and a few dashes of pepper. And then we simply just stir this together in our dish. Now for the steak, we're going to add 1 to 2 pounds of either a skirt steak or a flank steak. As you can see, it's in this really long piece that's sliced nice and thin. I'm going to go ahead and just slice it in half to make it easier to work with and to cook. And then we can just dip it down into our marinade, making sure that it gets coated on both sides. We'll make sure both pieces get properly dunked. I wish you could smell my kitchen right now because it smells so good. Now that our meat has been thoroughly immersed in that delicious marinade, we'll go ahead and put on a lid. And then I'll put this back into the fridge and then allow it to marinate for anywhere between 1 to 4 hours. You have several options for cooking your carne asada. You could do it outside on the grill, you could do it in the oven, or you can do it on your stovetop. And you have 3 options for skillets that can handle the high heat and give that nice char on the outside of your steak. The first is using a cast iron pan with the grill pattern. The second is just a large traditional cast iron pan. And the third is using a Hexclad pan, which is a hybrid between non-stick and cast iron. This is my favorite option because it can handle the high heat and it's really easy to clean. Well, here's our steak that's been marinating for several hours. And oh my goodness, that smells good. Now our steak has been marinating in all these juices, and if we were going to cook it outside on the grill, then we could just take it right out of our dish. But we're going to be cooking this inside on our stovetop, and we want that steak to get that nice char as soon as it hits the hot pan. So we need to remove the excess marinade before the steak goes into the pan. So I've just lined my cutting board with some paper towels. Now I'll just lift the steak up out of the marinade, let some of the excess juice drip off. Then I'll lay them down on my paper towel and just blot out the excess marinade. Now since my pan isn't large enough to cook both of these at once, I'll go ahead and just cook them one at a time. First thing you'll want to do is bring your pan to a high heat, and this is necessary to get that nice char as soon as the meat hits the pan. With my Hexclad pan, I'm going to add about a teaspoon of olive oil just to help activate the non-stick surface. Then you'll want to lay away as you place your steak inside the pan, and that instant sizzle lets you know that you are getting some delicious crispy flavor on the outside of your meat. Then you'll want to allow it to cook for about 2, maybe 3 minutes, or until it's nice and charred on the bottom. Another really important hack for getting the most flavor out of your steak is to season it with salt. Now I should have done this before I put the meat into the pan, but that's okay. I can go ahead and add the coarse sea salt right now before I flip over the meat. Then you'll carefully flip it over and then cook it for another maybe 2 to 3 minutes. Now for the most accurate results, you'll want to use a meat thermometer to check the internal temperature. For rare, you'll want it to be around 130 degrees Fahrenheit, and for medium rare, you'll want it to be around 140 degrees. Mine is averaging about 140, 145, so it is done and ready to come out of the pan. So I'm going to turn off the heat and then just remove the meat from the pan and transfer it to a plate. Since I still have another piece of meat to cook, I want to scrape out any of these little burnt bits out of my pan, and then I'm going to add just a little bit more of my olive oil, and then I'll proceed to cook my second piece of meat. Now the most important hack for having juicy steak is to allow it to rest for about 10 to 15 minutes as soon as you take it out of the pan. And this gives all those juices a chance to soak back into all of those meat fibers. So here's our steak that's been resting for about 15 minutes, and it is ready to slice. Now in slicing the meat, you're going to want to cut it against the grain. So as you look at the meat, you can see these horizontal stripes. So we want to cut it opposite of those stripes to get the best carne asada texture. So I'll just hold it in place and then go through and cut it against the grain. I like to cut it nice and thin so it almost falls apart. You can see in this thicker part that we have the perfect medium to medium rare temperature. Well, that looks delicious. And it is time for a sample. I love how we're able to get that delicious char on the outside and then it's just soft and pink on the inside, which means we're gonna have the most amount of flavor and tenderness. That is so good. That has so much incredible flavor. I love getting that grilled charred flavor on the outside, but then having that soft and juicy tender meat on the inside. And I can taste a little bit of sweetness from the orange juice, and then I get some tang from the lime, and then I get that delicious seasoning coming in from the Worcestershire sauce and a little bit of garlic. That is seriously so good. And this is perfect for serving in your tacos or burritos or your salad bowls. And I love that it's made with clean, natural ingredients, which means I'm gonna feel just as good even after I eat it. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today in my kitchen. I've included the link to this full recipe and it's in the video description below. That takes you to my website, gentletummy.com. And I also invite you to like and subscribe to my channel. And if you know someone else who you think would love this recipe, please share this video with them. And I cannot wait to have you hang out with me again in my kitchen.